Hello, dear colleagues. I'm really glad to greet you here in our panel discussion of the Northern Sustainable Development Forum. The Arctic Development Project Office is providing this event with its experts. A few days ago, we opened this forum, and now we are finishing our event in cooperation with the Secretariat of the Northern Forum. So we will discuss the Arctic policy of the Russian Federation. And the very important point is that experts of Arctic Development Project Office are represented by many regions of our country. And today we will have a discussion on new outlines of international cooperation in the Arctic. And another important point of our event is that Vladimir Putin has said that the general risk of realization of the conception is international aspect, because there are different opinions on the relationships that will be launched in Russian Arctic. In order to realize the conception and basis of the strategy, we have to clearly understand what we have to do from international point of view. And now I'd like to give the floor to my co-moderator, to Daryana Maksimova, the acting deputy director of the Northern Forum. Thank you very much, Alexander. I'm really glad that you join us, and you are one of few guests who came here in Yakutsk, and I'm really grateful to you. The idea of the Arctic Development Project Office is really important. And for 2 years, this office has lots of successful projects. I hope that today's discussion will be really interesting. Today we have lots of representatives from different regions of Russia. Also, we have foreign participants. Thank you very much. We have lots of speakers today. Dear colleagues, I kindly ask you to speak only 5 minutes. And I promise that all the speeches all your reports will be published in our magazine Arctic 2035, or maybe we will have publications in Scopus. So we are really short in time. Please take into account that you will have only 5 minutes. So I have already said my own speech on behalf of organizers.
On behalf of Republic of Yakutia and the Minister for Foreign Relations of Yakutia, and on my behalf, I would like to greet all the participants of today's discussion and to wish all of them success. And at this point, this topic is of course very important, as Dariana said, and I would like to wish all of you today success.
I am sure that they will contribute to our session today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vladimir Vladimirovich. And the government of Sakha-Yakutia, on behalf of the Ministry for Foreign Relations and People's Affairs of Yakutia, is one of the main organizers. And the second Northern Sustainable Development Forum was organized by 3 organizations. It's the Northern Forum, the government of Yakutia, and Northeastern Federal University. That is why the floor now is given to Deputy Rector of NEFU on International Scientific Technical Research, Yuri Mikhailovich Grigoriev. He's online now. Thank you very much. Good morning or good evening. Can you hear me? Good day to you, or good evening, dear colleagues. And I represent the Northeastern Federal University, and I am very happy that I have this opportunity to speak before such a great audience. And I would like to talk a little bit about the Arctic vector in research of NEFU. The Arctic vector of our university, as in everywhere maybe, started in 1990s. For example, in 1998, our university took part in the international project University of the Arctic University, which unites together the scientific potential of universities of the Arctic. This is a wide network of universities, colleges, institutes, and organizations. The University UArctic officially opened in 2001 in Rovaniemi, Lapland, Finland, and the university has signed many agreements on cooperation with various scientific and educational organizations of the Arctic. A number of examples of our work in this direction. The scientific collective of the Russian-German laboratory BOM last year has prepared a database which has data on the number and ecological preferences of 450 species and varieties of diatom algae in the Anabar River Basin. And it is headed from our side by Dr. Pestryakova Lyudmila. And this work is done jointly with the Institute of Alfred Wegener, the Center of Polar Research Institute, and the researchers at the laboratory regularly organize Russian-German expeditions. And they also developed a modern theme of implementing the approaches of molecular biotechnologies and bioengineering for researching Northern and Arctic plants, headed by Ismail Zulfugarov, professor. There are first results already, which are connected with the study of plants which grow on the territory of the pole of cold, or Mekong mountains. And another direction on climatology is headed by Maxim Trofimov, professor, and there is an international scientific educational center on biogeochemistry and climatology BEST. And we have created a unique network of biogeochemical stations, which include stations in various natural zones of Yakutia. And this station is also part of the global network for climate study. In 2019, for example, the researchers at the laboratory organized an expedition jointly with the Swiss Institute of Landscapes to Chukotka. We also have paleontological research jointly with various countries. For example, in 2019, the university and the Fund for Development of Abu Dhabi have signed an MOU, according to which the university receives research equipment for free. And there is also humanities that we were working on. There's a project called the Peoples of Northeast of Russia. How much time do you need? You have 1 minute left. I'm finishing already. And the linguistic study is done together with the students from Chicago, headed by Professor Knobel. And there is another very strong project with Bridgestone Corporation on testing car tires in extreme conditions of low temperatures. And these are some examples. And the university is also open for doing joint research with on very interesting directions, which you can see on this slide. It's the on environment, new Arctic settlements, energy efficiency, and the technologies that require research and connected with renewable sources, and creation of polymer materials, and phytoresources of the north. So this is my short speech. Thank you. And I would like to give the floor to one more organizer, Daria. Do you hear me? She was there. I want to give the floor to Ms. Lamanova. She is also a co-organizer of this event, and she is the chair of deputy executive director of Korchakov Foundation, a very well-known organization which has political science as its primary focus. Thank you very much, Alexander. Dear colleagues, good afternoon. I will just briefly say that the Khrushchev Foundation, from the start of its work, is working on the Arctic and Arctic cooperation. And this topic for us is very important and a priority one. And we annually identify this topic as the priority topic, which is approved by the chair of our supervising committee, headed by Mr. Lavrov. And we are working with the experts who are working on this issue and who are ready and who are always happy for the contribution of Russian experts into this our common goal. And I wish everyone and the experts fruitful discussion, and for the organizers of this event, success in the future. Thank you. And I want to say that the Khrushchev Foundation organizes the learning and training of students in political issues. At the start of this year, they had this school in Veliki Novgorod, where they had so many people there, students, and it was very successful, and the results were excellent. And this is the role of the Khrushchev Foundation. Thank you, Daria. Thank you. Thank you, Daria. And it is going to be very interesting discussion that we're going to have today. And once again, thank you to you for your help in organizing this event. And I want to give the floor to my co-moderator, Alexander Varetnikov, the coordinator of PORA Expert Center. Once again, good afternoon, dear colleagues. And my topic for today of this short discussion might be a little bit sad or maybe slightly alarming. Well, so we have this list of speakers. All of them are experts, and they all represent other regions. From Yakutia, there's basically almost no one except Konstantin. And I think that this is a big misfortune. Yakutia is becoming one of the centers for the development of the Russian Arctic. Head of the Republic, Arsen Nikolaev, is paying a lot of attention for the development of the Arctic, and we see that in the direction of international activities, even though there is a whole ministry which is responsible for foreign relations, there is not a single report. There is no analysis of the situation. What is going on in the sphere of international relations here in Yakutia? I think that we should have recommendations of our roundtable, and I hope that the experts will support me. We should recommend to the government of Yakutia, to the head of Yakutia, to pay a great deal of attention for this direction, to train specialists, so that they can work for the international aspects of the Republic in the strategy for the development of the Republic until 2035. And this whole layer is missing for implementing the strategy of Yakutia until 2035. Just notice the Deputy Minister for the Development of the Arctic and Far East. He is heading two departments, Department on the Arctic and International Department. And the implementation of the strategy in the Arctic without the international aspect is not possible. And I think that this aspect for the activities of the government of Yakutia is missing. We don't see the representatives of the Republic on this event. While you are here, we had this representative from Northeastern Federal University, from the Ministry of Foreign Relations, but we don't see any results. Well, I did see the report by Konstantin, and there are results, but there are no results from the Republic. Okay, we can move on. Well, here I want to say that I am also an expert. But as Alexander Varetnikov says, so we should, I'm probably more from the Northern Forum International Organization, but I also represent Northeastern Federal University as well. Okay, and let's move to our reporters. We don't have much time, and we have lots of people who would like to speak today. And our next speaker today is Konstantin Nifantov, member of PORA Expert Council, candidate of biology, head of the research part of Arctic Agro-Technological Institute.
Thank you. I am really glad to see you here, all the participants, all the panel discussion, new outlines of international cooperation in the Arctic. As I am representing the State University of Agriculture, I'd like to talk a little bit about our international activities. In 2018, we started to cooperate with Karelian University. Our research area on climate change is multifaceted and brings together experts from different fields. And we also had provided the event which was dedicated to the development of agriculture. Also, our partners from Yakutia are Northeastern Federal University, Institute of Biology Science, Institute of Agricultural Sciences Research, and of course our Arctic University. The problem of climate change is a very big problem, and it has lots of aspects. And we are using now the disciplinary methods of researching. It consists of researching on sociocultural, agricultural, economic, biological. So it's a complex of sciences which studies climate change impact on problems of agricultural direction and field. So it's already 2 years when our project was started, and we have granted from the Ministry of International Affairs of Russian Federation as a result of our activity. We have published in a high-rated magazine, and now we are planning to promote our project. For example, next year will be dedicated to the work and cooperation with Germany, and we are planning to take part in competition. And our topic will sound as adaptation to the climate change. So let me invite all who is interested in this field, in global climate change leads and impacts, especially in Yakutia in the north, to the nature hazards. And of course, it has its effects on our ecosystem, and we should pay attention on it. And in the end, I'd like to say that scientific researches should be aimed they should be not only fundamental but also applicable in production, in the real sectors of economy. All our ideas should be realized and commercialized. Looking at the development of foundations and scientific competitions, I'd like to say that our level is low regarding this aspect. Also, I'd like to discuss the question of funding. By our production companies who can solve their problems using science research. Thank you for your report, and it clearly shows that scientific cooperation between universities is a very good example of real result. And people starting to know deeper and better the situation in region. And the next speaker is Жанна Васильева.
She is also a very well-known scientist, researcher, chemist, and her work allows for the restoration of communications and relations with other countries. Thank you. Can you see my presentation? Not yet. Okay, let's wait a little bit. Something is coming online. Yes,
Так,
there
к
is something.
сожалению, вот демонстрация.
But,
Вот видно,
oh,
да?
there it is.
Здравствуйте, дорогие
Okay,
коллеги.
good evening,
зовут
dear
Васильева
colleagues. My
Жанна
name
Вячеславовна.
is Vasilieva
Я
Жанна.
заведующий
I'm
кафедрой
head
техносферной
of the Department
безопасности
of
Мурманского
Technospheric
государственного
Safety
технического
of Murmansk
университета.
State Technical
И
University.
сегодня вот,
And
решила
today
сделать
I
доклад вам о
wanted to make a
направлениях
report
международного
on the
сотрудничества в сфере
directions of
создания
international
комфортной
cooperation
городской среды в
in the sphere of creating comfortable
Это очень
urban
важный такой
environment in the
вопрос
Arctic.
сейчас
This is a very important
всеми
point
теми
right now,
странами,
which is standing
которые
before all those
планируют
countries who are planning to settle
теми странами,
the
которые
Arctic,
расположены в
all the countries who are
регионе.
located in the
Задача
Arctic,
сделать
and the goal
пространство
is to
физическое
make
комфортным
the Arctic
для
space
жизни,
comfortable for the life
для освоения,
of people, for settlement,
роста.
for
И в первую
development,
очередь, конечно,
industrial
для
development,
комфортной
and
жизни.
first of all, of course, for the
Я
comfortable life
немножко
of
вам
people. And I'm going to
сейчас
tell a
о
little bit about
деятельности
the activity
нашего
of our
университета в сфере
university
экологических разработок.
in the sphere of
Исторически так сложилось, что
environmental
наша
research.
деятельность
Historically, our
перекликается
activities
с
have
направлениями
been
работы
reflecting the work of the Arctic Council. If the Arctic Council has the group on removing pollution in the Arctic, in our university we have an innovative technologies of recycling trash and protecting the natural environment of the Arctic, and like the programs for Arctic monitoring and evaluation correspond to our program of monitoring of the natural anthropogenic environment. So basically it's like the same. And because of this, we have a very well developed international cooperation, and this is only the part of those international network universities and organizations, private educational institutions and organizations that we are working with on many various issues. And the result of this interaction is international projects, and a number of these projects in the sphere for creating comfortable urban areas in the Arctic, you can see on the slide. And the last large project for over 2 million euros, it's called Arctic ENPI-CBC, Green Arctic Building, and it's here at the lower line here, and its participants are large universities of the North and the Arctic countries from Finland, Sweden, Norway, and Russia. So the directions of international cooperation in creating comfortable urban areas in Arctica include partnership in research, educational activity, academic mobility of students and teachers, and the training of our specialists and students in research organizations and international universities. The result, of course, is the development of joint international educational programs and organization of international winter and summer schools. And those who know about education, they understand that implementation of international educational programs is very difficult now due to a number of licensing requirements and so on that are required by the education control department, but we are still trying to work there, and we still keep in touch with our partners. And these are some of the programs that we are still working on at the moment. Returning to the topic of my speech today, the concept for creating comfortable urban areas, it creates a number of tasks and challenges, and they are actually working in all over the world. And international groups are working in two directions, and these directions are in this field of minimizing the changes in weather. And you can see the picture here. This is me in the University of Narvik in one of these solutions. And the next photo is the connection between the University of Tromsø and the hospital in Tromsø. So these are these comfortable solutions that are aimed at creating an artificial environment with a special microclimate. And the second big direction for implementing which new international research groups are created at the moment is the concept of climate as an advantage. If we talk about the first direction, then these are project solutions aimed at minimizing the changes in temperature and weather, and these are the main directions of this here on this slide. Our Scandinavian neighbors have already undergone this stage. 1 minute you have. Okay. We are working in all directions and concepts and are actively interacting. Well, there are many results, of course, which are interesting for the international community. We print a number of articles in Web of Science and Scopus, and of course the main is the interaction, which is interesting to everyone. You can see the quality of atmospheric air, which we evaluate using the monitoring and drones and various equipment and methods, which are both international and Russian. A very interesting project connected with the use of extracellular polymeric substances for cleaning and recycling sewage water. And this, of course, results in technologies and patents that we have and which are already in the stage of industrial implementation. So in general, if we talk about our projects in the sphere of ecology and comfortable urban areas, we can say that we are working in the directions of clean water, clean air, recycling, and sustainable development of cities. We have lots of many projects, and so unfortunately there is not enough time to tell everything. And I can only say one thing. Our foreign partners are always happy to contact us, to work with us, despite any sanctions after 2014, even though a number of large projects have slightly slowed down because of this. But at present, we hope that everything will start again, and there's going to be a second rebirth for them. And these programs are going to get larger and will work. And I also want to say that studying the Arctic environment and creation of comfortable for development territories without destroying the fragile environment of the Arctic is a global science, and it requires the efforts of international players and international cooperation, which will only benefit the environment and us, and will develop all of us, both in educational and research and social aspects, in order to create the comfortable environment in the Arctic. Thank you. Very interesting speech, and I have many proposals for you. Well, Yakutia at present is going to reconstruct a new port in Tiksi, and the Republic of Yakutia doesn't have this experience of such port work. Yakutia is only becoming a sea, a maritime area. And I'll probably send your recommendation, your presentation to the minister tomorrow, and we'll talk with him about this, and maybe there's going to be an opportunity to either send students to study in your university in directions that you're talking about, or maybe you can participate in the Scientific Educational Center North here, which exists here in Yakutia. Because managing this port area from the point of view of sustainable development is difficult, and Yakutia has no such experience. We can discuss this later with you, and it can be in the roadmap that we talked about. Thank you. Thank you very much to our speaker. And I also want to say in brief that the North Scientific Educational Environment is a unique project that will be implemented here in Yakutia. It's a scientific educational center, and it is created together with all the institutions in Yakutia, and the government of Yakutia. It's the Academy of Sciences, Northeastern Federal University is involved in this. And I will contradict a little bit and say that we do have some experience of what my co-moderator told about. We do have experience of international cooperation, not only scientific, but also political, because it is us who created this second Northern Sustainable Development Forum in order to share our experiences. And this is the last day of the forum today, and during these days in all fora, our speakers from Yakutia have been represented who talked about all of our experience over these years and the idea of this forum in order to unite the whole world. And Yakutia has this good foundation in order for us to say that, yes, we want to share our experience with the world from the point of view of scientific research. And me, as I am also a representative of NEFU, I can say that we at NEFU have partnership with over 110 foreign universities and institutions and tens of scientific research institutes. And this is like a huge foundation for scientific research. And of course, we could have talked a bit more in this forum, but our time is limited. But in each the forum of this NSDF, we talked about this. And me, after the forum, I'm already thinking that I'm going to be looking at all those videos that we made. And thank you very much to Yakutia that we organized this in such a way that we can watch everything again on YouTube. I invite all of you to YouTube to watch all of our videos and to see all this great experience of Yakutia and also of all the people who took part in this forum. And we also had a very good and important meeting on the political side of the NEAR organization, which represents over 70 regions, which was organized by the Ministry for Foreign Relations and the People's Affairs. And it was like really, really good that we could do this within the frames of our forum. And I see this as my child, basically, and I understand that we do need to develop, and I want to say that we need to do a lot for the future, and the experience is very important for the development, and this is this sustainable development. And as for the North Scientific Educational Center, I invite everyone to join us there, and it's going to become a global level player. Okay, let's continue our program. And it seems, Zhuravel Valery Petrovich, seems your microphone is not working. So our speaker is Zaika Yulia Valerievna, head of the International Department of Polish Scientific Center, who's going to talk about the scientific diplomacy in the Arctic as a factor for the development of society. Good day, our dear colleagues. I hope you can hear me. I am going to try to show you my presentation now. You can see it, hopefully. Yes. You know, it is really good that we have this kind of beautiful session. I've been listening to previous speakers, and my presentation will probably be like an addendum to their speeches, especially to my colleagues from Murmansk, because our center is somewhere there. And one of the directions of my work is scientific diplomacy, and I want to make a short analysis of those successful practices of international cooperation that have been done through scientific diplomacy. Because I think that in order to discuss the new contours of international cooperation, it's sometimes necessary to look at the existing successful practices. And you know that the scientific diplomacy in this context is understood as the part of the foreign policy of a state. And we all know that one of the good examples of the scientific diplomacy is the Arctic Council. And we know that in 2015, in Fairbanks, Alaska, an agreement was signed in order to strengthen international cooperation. And I think that this is a very important part of the chairmanship of Russia in the Arctic Council next year, in order to strengthen and deepen the work in this agreement, because it is only starting to work, basically. One of the examples that maybe someone talked about before is which is like geographically dependent, because we know that the international cooperation usually depends on geography. In the northwest, we have an active Barents Eurasian Region Council, and which is working on cooperation and within the frames of this council. And last year from Chukotka there has been news that this model, BR, as an example of successful cooperation, is used, or maybe being discussed to be used, for work in the sphere of cooperation with the United States. So for the Bering Pacific region. And I think that this example of using successful practices is very well reflects how they work and how they exist. And my colleague from Murmansk, Жанна, said that talk about this cross-border cooperation program, which is very active in Murmansk region since 2017. And this program is also one of the examples of successful development of scientific diplomacy. And well, with the cooperation of a number of countries and their financing, there's lots of international cooperation going on, which is not only among the business and municipalities, because in this cross-border program we have many different actors, including the municipalities and scientific organizations and educational organizations. And I have made a short review of the program in two periods of the program, from 2007 to 2013 and from 2014 to 2017. in order to see what is going on with this existing program. And as you can see, I managed to make a small conclusion, and we have 350 partners from 4 countries, and 51% of these partners of these 350 organizations are scientific and educational institutions and centers of this big region. And if you look at it slightly deeper, we can see that at the first period of the program, from 2007 to 2013, our priority was the projects that been done in cooperation of 3 countries, but in 2014-2020, the tendency was to participate for 4 countries. So the international cooperation is directly becoming more large scale and much deeper. And of course, this is connected with those requirements of the program itself. And we can also point out here that even at the level of the work of the program itself, as I already said, was established. Yeah, I'm finishing. And here on this slide, I also wanted to show that Finland in this program, if you look at it as one of the examples of successful development of international cooperation, Finland has quite a lot of projects running here, and he's like a leading partner, which also like financing the product. And Russia is not the last here, and I hope that in the future, and with this large period as the chairmanship of Russia in the Arctic Council, Russia is going to become a leading partner here. Thank you. Well, I didn't want to stop you, but unfortunately we have a time frame for each speaker, and I would really love to get your presentation. I just wanted to say once more to my colleagues, to our colleagues, we have talked a little bit about the importance of publications in Scopus Web of Science journals, and I just wanted to say that we are planning with our colleagues and with my colleagues from National Science Foundation, from the US and UK, we are planning to publish a special issue of the Polar Record Journal from the Cambridge University, and it is in the second quartile, and probably start we'll issue a call for papers at sometime in the second half of September or October, and we're going to send information through the Northern Forum. Thank you. And this is a very good information, and of course in scientific world there is a need for publication, and we really want to publish in really indexed journals, and Polar Record is a very good, very cool journal. And our next speaker is Valery Zhuravil, member of the Expert Council PARA, head of the Center of Arctic Experts Center.
Вас не слышно.
We can't hear you. Please say something. Do you hear me?
Звук есть.
Александра. Алло.
Начинайте свой... Давайте перейдем к следующему докладчику. Мы еще вернемся к Валерию Петровичу. Следующий докладчик у нас,
So let's move on, and the next speaker is Olga Podberyskina, the candidate of political science, researcher of the Center for Post-Soviet Studies, Institute of International Studies, Moscow State University of Foreign Affairs. Hello, dear colleagues, and now I'd like to start from that. Starting from the next year, Russia will lead the project office, and we can divide the strategy into three parts. And when we talk about structural project like Indigo, Dixie Port,
это все не противоречит зеленой экономике, которую мы строим, и также зеленому акту для Европы, который был подписан год назад и который предполагает
all these projects refer to the green projects, and our companies try to act proportionately. For example, as for coal cleaning, we have companies, and these companies should be considered as green companies. And of course, we should attract investments. And there is a question if the foreign investments will be attracted in our green projects. And there is also a point on science-intensive part in production and development in the Arctic. The Agency of the Development of Human Capital of the Far Eastern regions is working on it now, and I would like to propose to create a working group on ecological, environmental, educational group to start exchange between school children so we can see the scale, the level of divergences. Thank you, Olga, and I would like to support your proposal because there are lots of talks about strategy of Arctic, of development of the Arctic zone of the Russian Federation, and we should clearly understand that without green investments, they won't be realized without such financial support. And there is also thought that the Northern Sea route doesn't meet the requirements of green project. So the suggestions on the green investments are prepared by Vnesh Promtorgbarg. So you're really right, and the green financing should be taken into account. And now I'd like to give the floor to Anna Rodriguez.
Да, я здесь. Александр Михайлович, да, добрый день. Да, здравствуйте. Здравствуйте.
And now I'd like to give the floor to Sergei Nikanorov, professor of the Department of Environmental Economics, Faculty of Economics, Moscow State University, expert of the
Уважаемые
PORA.
коллеги, добрый день. Я рад вас всех видеть. Спасибо большое.
Hello, dear
Второй раз
colleagues.
принимаем участие на таком
It's
форуме по
my
устойчивому развитию.
second time
Я, в принципе,
of
скажу
my
очень
participation
коротко.
in this
Мы
forum.
открыты к
I will be
сотрудничеству,
short.
причем
We are
сотрудничество с Александром
ready to
Михайловичем мы давно уже
cooperate
работаем по различным
with
направлениям,
you,
определенным
and we are
сферам. И,
already
соответственно, работаем
working
над разными
together on
проектами. У
different
нас
projects.
есть несколько интересных проектов,
And we
связанных
have several
с
interesting
полярным индексом.
projects
Сегодня
on
говорилось о
polar index.
Балтийском регионе. У нас тоже есть такой проект, который мы оцениваем сейчас компании и, соответственно, провинции Финляндии, Швеции, Норвегии, России.
Now we are
Смотрим динамики, смотрим, как они улучшают или ухудшают свои
estimating
позиции.
the provincial and small
будет работать это с точки зрения цели устойчивого развития. Кто и как
villages in
работает в этом направлении, и
foreign
компании, соответственно, и регионы.
countries,
И мы
and
хотим
we
посмотреть
will
все 8 арктических
monitor
стран
how
с
it
точки
will
зрения, с
work.
одной стороны, с точки зрения цели устойчивого развития, и с другой
And we
стороны,
will look at
посмотреть
it
наши
from the
собственные
point of
расчеты,
view of
где с точки
sustainable
зрения FDI,
development.
индекса устойчивого развития, развиваются те или иные
And
компании. Ну, баланс
we will see
между
how
экономическими,
companies
социальными,
will
экологическими.
grow
Посмотреть место
with
России,
the
посмотреть,
index
выработать
of
какие-то общие решения, на самом деле
sustainable
найти какой-то
development.
определенный бенчмарк и, соответственно, двигаться в этом направлении. Я
So we
горячо
will
поддерживаю
move
идею
on this
предложения
direction,
по
and
экологическому строительству и
I'm really
по
supporting
финансированию
the
различных проектов.
proposals
Я
on
поддерживаю также
support
элемент системы по очистке
of the
воды,
projects,
элемент системы,
especially green ones,
связанный с экологическим туризмом и все, что
who
связано
are
с
connected with
возобновляемой источниками энергии в
environmental
Арктике. Проекты, которые мы сейчас ведем и по устойчивому развитию городов,
fields.
в различных направлениях у нас есть 12
We
тематических
have
направлений.
12
Вот не только зеленый
thematic
климат, я
directions
расширил бы эту сферу именно для
we are
Арктики. Я
working
создал бы и
on,
придумал новую модель экономики, синей экономики. Вот, это не только связано именно
and the
с
creation
морями,
of
не только
the
связано с водой, но еще и
new
связано
projects
именно
is
с
connected
социальными
with
аспектами.
the
То есть
social
это
aspects,
качество жизни населения, если мы
with
посмотрим,
the
это во главу угла
quality of
нашего устойчивого
life
развития,
of
мне
the
кажется, большинство проектов
our
поддержит.
population,
Коллеги,
and
и в научном, и в теоретическом, и в практическом варианте
also
давайте лучше
in
сотрудничать. И есть у нас очень хороший
researching
координационный центр
works in
проектных
practically
реализаций,
let's work
но я
together.
предлагаю вот сотрудничать,
And
какой-то
also
реальный проект делать
I'd
и,
like
соответственно,
to
продвигаться вперед. Спасибо.
promote our projects further with you. Thank you.
Большое спасибо, Сергей Михайлович.
Thank you, Sergey.
Призывы и мотивация делать международное сотрудничество — это очень-очень важно в нашем
We're really glad to hear your proposals on cooperation, especially about concrete projects. It's really exciting when you're working on it. Now I would like to give the floor to Maria Petukhina, leading researcher of the Federal Research Center, Karelian Scientific Center.
начну рассказывать, надеюсь, что будет меня слышно. Который я хотела бы выступить, называется «Интернационализация высшего образования».
Hello, dear colleagues, and today I will be talk about the internalization of the higher education.
О нашем исследовании, которое мы делали в
So
2017
our
году.
general aim
Мы
is
оценивали потенциал международного сотрудничества 15
is
технических
to
университетов,
estimating the
Питти российских университетов,
potential of
ЦГТУ, САФУ, МГТУ, МАГУ и
international
НТРУ, и
cooperation
10
of
зарубежных университетов по институту
15 Arctic
показателей.
universities
Перечислять показатели не буду, но
from
в частности,
Russia,
доля
Norway,
иностранных
Finland,
обучающихся от общей доли
United
студентов
States,
было приглашенных
Iceland,
ученых в этот
Canada
университет,
in
доля
10
студентов, направленных на обучение в
points.
иностранные вузы и так далее.
So there are universities who are participating in our cooperation, and the main criteria is that they should be lots of students. And on this slide you can see the amount of new opened sources.
С чем это? Может быть, вы сможете наушники надеть? Да, Мария Александровна, вы с нами? Нет? Я думаю, что следующий докладчик тогда Александр Михайлович объявляет. Нет, я объявляю. Следующий докладчик у нас Журавель Валерий Петрович. Нет? Появилась, да? Заминка.
Да, слышу.
Но Журавель Валерий Петрович, вас представляю. Институт Европы РАН. Журавель Валерий Петрович, также член экспертного совета ПАРА, руководитель Центра арктических исследований Института Европы РАН.
Вы меня слышите? Здравствуйте.
Мы вас прекрасно слышим.
Хорошо. Уважаемые коллеги, я хотел бы вас поздравить с замечательной панельной дискуссией, которая у нас происходит. Прозвучало много интересных мыслей. Я в своем докладе небольшом хотел бы остановиться на особенностях стратегии и политики европейских стран в Арктике. Первое, что хотелось бы сказать, что в Арктическом совете большинство принадлежит европейским государствам. В деятельности на арктическом направлении они поддерживают Совет. Все вопросы стремятся решать на основе сотрудничества.
And the purpose of my speech is to identify the features of the migration situation in the Arctic zone and
я хотел бы отметить, что впервые национальная арктическая политика была разработана Норвегией.
So the first strategy was developed in Norway, and it has launched 4 documents on foreign migration. And the new strategy was published a few years ago, and on this document the general priorities of the country were outlined. First of all, it's of course leading scientific research, it's development of natural sources, and the main center of actions is Norway Port Tromsø, where not only icebreakers are based, but also the Secretariat of Arctic Council is located. There are, of course, problems with
хотя
Norway,
проводятся соответствующие по
which we
линии МИДа
can't solve.
переговоры, это по вопросу Шпицбергена.
It's
В
about
основах на
Spitsbergen problem.
Арктика 2035 там поставлена задача вот достичь, чтобы
And
все
in the
было
document Arctic
справедливо,
2035,
справедливо.
there is an
Если говорить по
announcement
Дании,
that we
то
should
Дания имеет два
overcome
документа.
it.
В 8
What
и в
about
11
Denmark?
году. В
There
этом
are
году
two
вот у нее
documents.
заканчивается стратегия королевства Дании. Недавно у меня была встреча с посольством.
Not so many time ago,
Дании, где они сказали, что они скоро будут
I had
презентовать свою
met with Denmark
стратегию. Они
consul,
очень интересовались,
and they are really
как
interested
мы
how
готовим такие
do
документы,
we
как
prepare
определяем
such papers,
приоритеты.
how do
Ну,
we
для них
distinguish the
приоритетами
priorities.
датско-гренландской политики в Арктике названы и остаются энергетика, добыча
Now the
полезных
Denmark
ископаемых, торговля, туризм,
leading
судоходство,
priorities
образование,
are
наука и так далее. Но
education,
главное, все
science,
крутится
also
вокруг
shipping,
Гренландии. Если говорить о Финляндии, то
and
Гренландия в
everything
арктических делах
is.
занимает очень видное место, потому что она дала
And Greenland
импульс созданию Арктического совета.
has a very
Это
important
очень важно, мы
impact on
это
the
очень
development of
ценим.
Arctic strategy, and we
Налаживание
really
наших
appreciate
двусторонних
it,
отношений.
and we try to
В 2010
develop our
году
cooperation.
была
In
опубликована стратегия
2010,
Финляндии в арктическом регионе
the
по 4
strategy
главным направлениям.
was
Я их назову.
published
Это
in four
окружающая
main
среда и климат,
directions. It's
экономическая деятельность и
environmental,
ноу-хау,
it's
транспорт
about know-how.
и
The
коренные
third one is
народы,
transportation, and
народы
the
севера. Финляндия
fourth
имеет
is about
достаточно
indigenous
разветвленную
people.
структуру, которая позволяет ей проводить соответствующие арктические исследования. В 2019 году страна успешно завершила свое
Last year, the
председательство в Арктическом
country
совете и
has finished
передала ее
its
Исландии. Ну, я хотел бы здесь немножко сказать про
chairman
Исландию. У них
to
два документа,
another
которые
country.
определяют
What
их
about
стратегическую политику.
Iceland? It has two
Значит, первый
papers who
8
have
в
outlined the
2011 году второй
international
документ.
policy.
Их парламент принял резолюцию по арктической стратегии Исландии. Она довольно-таки большая.
They had
12 положений
accepted
там входит.
the
Но приоритетами Исландии
paper
названы использование
where the
возобновляемых
priorities
энергетических
are
ресурсов, учет интересов рыболовства, развитие
renewable
сотрудничества в
energy
области образования
sources. There are
и научно-технических
also
исследований.
scientific
Я
and
недавно
educational
разговаривал с нашим
issues.
послом в Исландии Василием Антонсевым.
Also,
Значит,
I had
и
met with
интересовался, как
ambassador
идут вопросы, связанные с председательством
of Iceland,
Исландии в Арктическом совете. Он, как
and
в прошлом,
I tried
старшее
to know
должностное
about
лицо
the
в Арктическом
position
совете,
in Arctic
внимательно следит за этими
Council,
вопросами и, в
and I
общем-то,
asked,
подтвердил о том, что все то, что
and
они
he really
наметили, у
proves
них
that
все это дело
all that
выполняется. Это
they had
вопросы
planned, they are
защиты
doing.
морской арктической среды,
Of course, it's
развития
about
рыболовецкого сектора,
protection of
снижение загрязнения
the
океана
Northern
пластиком,
Sea
внедрение
routes and
зеленой экономики,
implementation
энергетики
and
и
development of
продолжение
green
работы по
economy
улучшению качества прогнозов
and
погоды в арктическом регионе.
in
Я хочу
bettering
сказать,
the
что
climate
Россия
situation.
чрезвычайно заинтересована в том,
And I'd
чтобы
like to
Исландия
note that
выполнила свои
Russia is
программные
really interested
вещи, которые она запланировала, чтобы у нее все
in
получилось,
implementation
потому что в
of
мае следующего
Iceland
года
projects,
председательство в Арктическом совете перейдет к России.
because Russia
Если
will lead
говорить
the
про
Arctic Council
Швецию,
next
то
year.
хотелось бы отметить, что она только в 2011 году
What about
начала так серьезно
Sweden?
заниматься этими
I'd like to say
вопросами.
that only
В рамках
in
деятельности
2012
Арктического
it
совета,
has
ее рабочих
started
групп, Швеция
to
выступает за
promote its
установление жестких экологических стандартов
positions.
и усиление требований по
And of course,
уменьшению
this country
эмиссий
is
тепличных
standing
газов,
for
за уменьшение химического загрязнения Арктики, за
reducing
сохранение
the
биологического разнообразия
pollution
животного
in
и
Arctic.
растительного мира. Это вот наши
And they are, of
страны,
course,
как
for
говорится,
protection
учредители
the
Арктического
animals
совета. Я хочу
and
сказать,
flora
что
and fauna.
передовой опыт арктической стратегии и политики стран Северной Европы постоянно учитывает другие европейские государства, которые являются наблюдателями Арктического
And
совета. Это
another
Германия,
European
Великобритания,
countries
Франция,
as
Италия,
France, Italy,
Испания,
Spain, Germany
Нидерланды,
are looking
Польша
at the
и
great
Швейцария,
experience
которая
of the northern
недавно
countries.
вступила. Если говорить по этим странам, то ФРГ, ее интересуют вопросы экологии, экономики,
Germany
судоходства.
is really interested
Такую
in the
стратегию они приняли в 2013 году. Значит, в 2018 году Великобритания
nature protection,
презентовала вторую
environmental
арктическую стратегию,
education,
в
system
которой проблемы
development.
Арктики рассматриваются в рамках выхода ее из Евросоюза. Но хотелось бы отметить вот военные аспекты.
I'd like
Соединенное
to
Королевство
stop
состоит в том,
on
что они
a little
длительное
bit
время
on
как-то себя особенно не
military
проявляли в Арктике. Но вот
moments.
в сентябре 2020 года, вот
On
в этом
September
месяце, они возглавили военную
this
группировку в
month,
Арктике
they
и в составе
are
кораблей
leading the
Великобритании,
military
своих США, Дании и Норвегии, и, в общем-то,
presence in the
продемонстрировали
Arctic.
свободу судоходства. Но самое важное и интересное в том, что они пытались подойти в наши воды
And of course,
близко
they showed
к
the
нашим вопросам, где
freedom of
имеется
their shipping.
соответствующее расположение, дислокация войск нашего Северного флота. Если говорить о Франции, то она имеет свою дорожную карту.
What about
В 2016
France? It
году
has its
президент
own
республики
strategy.
Макрон, в общем-то, в
The
августе
President
2018 года
Macron
в обращении к послам Франции за рубежом ответил важность сотрудничества с
noted
Россией в развитии
the
арктического региона.
importance
Но если
of
говорить о
cooperation
Франции,
with Russian
то
Federation
это одна из
and with
стран,
the
которая
regions in
четко
Arctic
стала на путь
zone.
совершенствования военной техники и придания ей способности действовать в условиях
And now
крайнего
they
севера.
are
Если
working
говорить о
on
Италии,
the
то
development
надо
of
отметить о том, что она еще не выработала своей
military
арктической стратегии, но свои интересы в этом регионе видит в области
technologies,
энергетики, науки, туризма, в
and
развитии
they are trying to develop their
добычи полезных
tourism,
ископаемых. В 2018
developing
году широко Россия и Италия отметили 90-летие спасения советским ледоколом
and
«Красин»
minerals.
арктической экспедиции с участием итальянского исследователя генерала Умберто Нобеля. Значит, ну, завершая вот эту часть проблемы, я хотел бы сказать об Испании, Нидерландах,
So,
Польше
in
и Швейцарии.
conclusion, I would
Испания
like to
стремится
say
развивать
that
свой арктический
Spain
туризм.
is
Нидерланды
trying
накопили большой
to
опыт офшорной добычи
develop their
углеводородов,
Arctic
которые могут найти
tourism.
применение вот в северных морях. Польша прилагает
The
усилия по объединению вокруг себя
Poland
европейских стран-наблюдателей Арктического
tries to
совета.
unite the
Швейцария
bordering
только
countries.
присматривается к своему новому статусу, определяет интересы к рабочим группам совета. Но усилия всех этих четырех стран
So all
направлены в первую
these
очередь на изучение
countries are
изменений
aimed at
арктического климата и
researching
состояния арктической среды.
climate change and Arctic
Ну, несмотря на то,
environmental
что Европейскому
changes.
Союзу не был предоставлен статус наблюдателя в 2013 году в Арктическом совете, она вместе с тем в 2016 году
As you
приняла
know, the
комплексную
European
арктическую
Union
политику.
has
Ее
been
приоритеты, на наш взгляд, в целом соответствуют политике Арктического совета. Но вместе с тем мы
has been appointed as
знаем о том, что
observer
Совет выступает
in Arctic Council.
санкциями против России. И в этом плане, в общем-то, если эта политика будет продолжаться и дальше,
And if this
им
policy will
не
last
видеть своего статуса
further,
наблюдателя в Арктическом совете. Ну,
maybe
я сказал об
these
основных
countries
идеях,
will
которые
not
характерны для
want to be only
европейских стран.
observers in
Нельзя
Arctic
не
zones.
сказать о основных национальных интересах и приоритетах Российской Федерации. Они вот сформулированы в указе президента в основах госполитики 2 марта, 5 марта
And
2020
what about
года.
Russian positions? All
Они
our
очень важные, вносятся изменения, связанные
plans
с тем, что
were
в
reflected in the
2008
decree
году.
of the
Я
President of the
хочу
Russian
сказать, что
Federation. And
здесь вот 8 этих национальных интересов наших, и
we have
их
8 national
реализация,
interests,
конечно,
and their
будет способствовать
realization will
освоению развития
help
Арктики и
to
укреплять наше сотрудничество с
help
европейскими
to
странами.
empower
Делая
our
выводы, я хотел бы
cooperation with
отметить, что
Arctic countries.
став членами Арктического совета в разное время,
And being
европейские
a member
страны строят
of
свою
Arctic
стратегию и политику на
Council,
арктическом направлении,
the
исходя из своих
European countries
национальных
are
интересов,
constructing
собственного
their
международного опыта, а
strategies
также
using
перспектив
their own
экономического сотрудничества, в том
strategy,
числе
using
с
their
Российской Федерацией.
experience.
И повестка дня их деятельности расширяется.
And their
Мы можем
agenda
не сказать
is
о том, что на
widening.
арктическую политику европейских стран оказывает влияние
And
Соединенные Штаты Америки,
also,
Канада,
I'd
также
like to
Китай,
add
Индия,
that on the
Республика Корея,
policy
Япония и
of
Сингапур,
European
которые
countries
пошли в
also
состав Совета в качестве
affected
наблюдателей.
by United States,
Середины второго
Singapore, and
десятилетия
other
нынешнего века
countries.
в деятельности государств на арктическом направлении всех появился ряд ограничений, обусловленных санкционным режимом Соединенных
And of
Штатов
course,
Америки
there are
и
some
странами Европейского
restrictions,
Союза против России. Надо сказать,
like
что они
sanctions
отрицательно
against
сказываются не только на поддержании
Russian
стабильности в
Federation,
регионе,
and
но
it has a negative
привели к
effect
созданию целого ряда
on
перспективных
cooperation,
экономических,
and
как
of
российских,
course,
так и
it
европейских
has its own
проектов.
impact on
Спасибо большое.
further development. Thank you very much, Valery.
Континентам, Валерий Петрович по Европе, арктической Европе, я по канадской Европе. И помните, мы даже хотели что-то вместе написать. Был такой момент. Большое спасибо. Следующее у нас Петухина Мария Александровна.
And I want to say that our next speaker is Pitukhina Maria Alexandrovna, Petrozavodsk State University. Can you hear me now? Yes.
У тебя было такое хорошее выступление, начало.
You had a very good speech. You just started it and I really liked it, but something with your internet, maybe? Dear colleagues, oh yes, I had an issue with my microphone. Well, dear colleagues, unfortunately, sometimes we have issues. Connection. So I want to show this small presentation about the internationalization of higher education in the universities of Arctic Council members. And I want to talk about a small research of 2017 when we estimated the potential for international cooperation of 15 Arctic universities, 10 Russian Arctic universities of Russia, Northeastern Federal Universities, Afun, Batu, Margu, and Petergu, and 10 foreign universities. On 10 indicators of internationalization, including things like the number of researchers attracted from foreign countries and the share of foreign exchange students, and so on. We have analyzed 15 such universities, large Arctic universities with these no less than 3,600 students studying there, and the data has been gotten from 3 types of open information sources. It's the websites of the universities, website of UArctic, and database on projects in the sphere of economy, innovation, ecology, and social sphere, supported by international Arctic organizations. And I want to tell a little bit about the indicators. The first indicator is the number of realized projects of the university in the last 5 years. This is data for 2017. The top 3 most active universities who are implementing projects that have been supported by the international Arctic structures is the Arctic University in Tromsø, University of Iceland, and the University of Trolley. And the second indicator is the share of foreign students in the total number of students, we can see that the top three is the Arctic University in Tromsø, the University of Iceland, and Lapland University. All the Russian universities are not very good in this. And the indicator number 3, and here we ranked all the universities by the number of their students. We can see that the University of Umeå and Alaska in Anchorage are the largest, including also the Northeastern Federal University and Northern Arctic Federal University. And we also need to understand which language is the main language for the website of this university, and we can see that the Russian universities have Russian language. And in all the other universities, it's England, even in Norway, Sweden, and Finland, with the exception of Technology University in Luleå and Arctic University of Tromsø. We also analyzed the mentions of cooperation with Russia in the news of university, and first is the University of Alaska in Fairbanks and Lapland University. They have 7 mentions in the year, and the second part is the University of Alaska in Anchorage, University of Tromsø, and North University in Buda, 5 mentions. And then when we talk about the number of invited researchers and educators, the most active is Nephew, and then we have Peter Gu, and University of Iceland. The share of university that has been to study for foreign universities, we could only see the reports of these universities, and the most active university is the Northern Arctic Federal University, and you can also see the infographic of the UArctic. And we can see the 3 main vectors of student exchange in Arctic universities. So the main flows are from Norway to Russia, and from Canada to Finland, and from Russia to Finland. And the number of foreign students who have been accepted to the university are also ranked. And we have the indicator that shows the number of programs in English language. University of Iceland is leading here. It has 49 such programs, and then followed by University of Umeå and Arctic University of Tromsø with 35 programs. Only NAFU has more programs in Russia. And then the number of courses in English language, and we can see that the University of Iceland has 500 courses, and then University of Oulu, and then University of Tromsø, and NAFU has 66 courses. And the indicator is the number of international partnerships and memberships of university and signed agreements. The first is University of Umeå, then the University of Iceland, and then Northeastern Federal University. And the last indicator is the number of PhD programs. We have some time. You can speak slower. So I'm finishing. So this indicator is the number of PhD programs with foreign universities. The first is the Arctic University. We just have an interpretation. And second place, University of Safu and Aurora. And then at the end, we have the basis for the clusterization of the Arctic regions, and based on these 10 indicators of internationalization. And these indicators that we have talked about are the ones, and they have been ranked from 1 to 3. 1 was the lower potential for international cooperation, and 2 medium, and 3 is high potential. And after ranking the regions and divided them into low, medium, and high potential, and it seems that the Arctic of America has a low potential for international cooperation. The universities of Arctic in Europe have a high potential, higher than medium, and the Russian Arctic is average. Thank you for your attention.
Вот, Мария, как всегда, я вот восхищаюсь твоим докладом.
Yes, your report has been good, and I have a proposal for our Yakutian colleagues to do this again. Yes, yes, we have this analysis. And, yes, we're going to talk about this next time. We have everything. We have everything here. Thank you, Maria. And yes, I'm very, very happy to your work, and it's like always a pleasure. And our next speaker today is Eduard Kalemulin. Are you here? Yes, thank you.
Эдуард, аспирант, академик.
He's a postgraduate student of the academy. Yes, can you see my presentation now? Please press F5. Okay, my name is Eduard Kalemulin. I'm a postgraduate student. And my topic is Arctic governance in modern times. And I am going to talk a little bit theoretically within the frames of this session. So, in the middle of 1980s, Oren Young, who I know is a professor and had a speech at this forum as well, he forecasted that the Arctic is going to be one of the main points of international attention. And this is what is happening at the moment. And the Arctic, the region which has been ignored by everyone before, but now, due to a number of reasons that we all know, is becoming one of the central regions of the world. And the international cooperation was, of course, getting turning on gradually here, and one of its first examples was the Spitsbergen Agreement, which was signed in 1920, and then there was a period of the Cold War when cooperation was basically zero, and then it resumed only in the end of 1980s and the beginning of the 1990s, when a number of agreements have been signed and institutional research started and academic exchanges, all dedicated for environmental protection and scientific cooperation. Also, a key point there is 1987, when Mikhail Gorbachev has proposed to create the Arctic Research Council, and we know, like, we have this Arctic Council now. As for the modern stage of international operations in the Arctic, according to a well-known Canadian expert in legal sphere, Michael Byers, the traditional realistic explanations are not very good for the Arctic. You know, all these explanations about the impact of sanctions and so on, because still there is close cooperation in the Arctic. And he is proposing to have this idea of complex interdependence, which has been developed in 1977 by Joseph Naim. And in here on this table, you can see the main differences between the approach of realism and complex interdependency. If the main goal of realism is safety, the complex interdependency's main goal is that there is no like a stable hierarchy of goals, because in addition to national safety, national security, there's also lots of talks about the environment, about the preservation of biodiversity, and the security is not the main goal. And if they look at realism, the main actor is the state, the politics and so on. But in complex interdependency scenario, the main actors, well, instead of state, but not instead of state, but together with state, there are many different communities and scientific organizations and lots of agreements, formal, informal, and so on. So within this complex interdependency point, like as the Young said, Orant Young, he called this as a mosaic of agreements on specific issues, which are the general unified regime for the management of Arctic. And a number of researchers repeat him and characterize the management of Arctic governance as a kind of a mosaic of formal and informal mechanics on all levels. So the main logic here, when we talk about the modern governance of Arctic, is that it is the sum of parts meaning like various different agreements, which it seems are all following the same goal, which is the peace and cooperation in the Arctic. And of course, the central place here is taken by the Arctic Council, as we all know. This is like the main forum for this. And if you look theoretically, there are more decentralized positions for Arctic governance, such as Deplich and Dodge have this concept of bazaar governance. And an interesting approach, Arctic discussion forums, Arctic Frontiers, and the Arctic Council, and the International Arctic Forum. And they are all seen as the places for knowledge and ideas of Arctic, where this knowledge are bought and sold by interested parties. And of course, the challenges of modernity in the Arctic are basically things like, for example, the attention of the Arctic states towards environmental change, climate change. There's quite a lot of discussion on the issues of modernization of these complexly interacting systems of Arctic governance, and also the questions of the reformation of the Arctic Council, and which range from very small proposals to global proposal ideas and to change it to an organization whose decisions can be binding for all the parties. The experts of the Center of Strategic Research in Washington, they are calling to change the Arctic Council into the Arctic Organization for Security and Cooperation, and to change it from just environment and scientific research organization into something bigger. Of course, there's quite a lot of critique of this as well, as the people say that basically if this is done, then the Arctic Council will shift its focus from important points such as the environment or the indigenous people to something else. And well, it's very interesting to see how it's all going to develop in the future, how the Arctic Council is going to change as a central organization for cooperation in the Arctic. So this is all. Thank you very much. Yes, I'm just going to comment a little bit. So the experts say that the state is against this. The states are not interested in changing the role of the Arctic Council. And it is quite possible that Russia probably is not interested in this. And you should understand this, because we are going to be only by ourselves. And for us, it is not advantageous for the change of the Arctic Council role. What we are interested in is in expansion of the economic gist of the Arctic Council, so that there will be like more economic activities from the side of this organization. Yeah, experts say a lot of things, but the real situation is ambiguous. I wanted to ask you, dear colleagues, we have quite a lot of participants. Someone else wants to speak as a discussion, maybe as a proposal. Does anyone want to speak? Yes. Who's this? Vasilieva Жанна. So I'm going to give the floor to Dariana. And she is a very serious researcher, well known. She is studying Canada, and she's an expert on Canada and US. And she's like a star in this sphere of Russia, and she is the best person to ask about what is going on with Canada and Russia. Thank you very much for your introduction. And yes, it's a very interesting topic for me, international cooperation in different aspects. And I would like to tell you a little bit about the scientific cooperation, which I know from for a long time now, since 2005, and cooperation between countries and regions, which we talk about a lot as well, from the point of view of politics and economics, sustainable development, which we mention in this forum, which has 3 points: environment, economics, and population. And if we talk, well, I'm not a doctor yet, I'm a candidate of political science. And yes, I'm going to write my doctorate thesis. So that is why our forum is like a huge material for me, and I'm going to collect it here. So I will start from the scientific cooperation, and this time I'm very happy that our colleagues talk a lot about it, and there have been a few reports, speeches on scientific cooperation, and this is very important. And when I say that we have everything in Yakutia, yes, it is real. We have these huge numbers, but if we talk in general, then scientific cooperation, it's different. Yes, it can be in different directions. There can be scientific, technological cooperation is more developed here in Yakutia. If you talk about international humanities cooperation, well, Alexander said that there is like people's diplomacy, and I will say that, well, it's impossible to call scientific cooperation a popular diplomacy. Humanities cooperation is, well, okay, it's not very well developed here. Well, it is developing, while the scientific cooperation in the sphere of technology is very strong here. We have lots of institutions here, like the Academy of Sciences. We also have a very well-known Permafrost Institute, which had a huge conference dedicated to the 80th anniversary of this university. It was an outside event, but it was held within the frames of the forum. If we talk about international cooperation, scientific cooperation, I think that in the Arctic, it is very difficult was to build international cooperation due to the sanctions that have been imposed on Russia since 2014. If we talk about Russian-Canadian scientific cooperation, it was very difficult as well, because everything that was done before slowed down. But there is some warming at the moment. The Arctic consists of northern countries, which are most developed countries. Southern countries are mostly represented by developed countries, while the northern countries are more developed countries, like North America, Europe, talk a lot about them as Western countries, but if you look at the Arctic from the top, from the North Pole, we're so close to each other, this whole civilized world, and Russia is like a huge share of this northern world. It's very difficult to live in the north, and to be able to live here, we need technologies, we need to know how to live here. And all the sciences are developing here, and life, of course, develops as well. And when we talk about sustainable development in the Arctic, it is the very most interesting topic for the future generations, because Arctic at the same time is the civilized world when we talk about northern countries in the Arctic, and at the same time it is the most unstudied world. There are places where no human has ever been to. And in our forum, we wanted to draw your attention to the fact that in the northeast of Arctic, of the Russian Arctic, including Yakutia and Chukotka, there are very few research works on climate change. Arctic is drawing attention now from the point of view of climate change, both in scientific technological cooperation and scientific humanities cooperation. If we talk about this, it's like includes the melting of ice cover, what marine animals are there, laboratory research, climate, and so on. All of this can be studied. There are many different fields. I am a humanities student, humanities researcher myself. My focus is social science, and I can see that the Arctic cooperation in science is now speeding up. If we talk about humanities cooperation, it's slightly more difficult compared to technology cooperation. Our field here is called the New Outlines of International Cooperation in the Arctic, and these word outlines may have probably confused some of our potential participants, because I heard when this discussion was being prepared that, well, you're going to talk about geopolitics there. And that is why the international humanities cooperation is difficult because of this, because it includes lots of geopolitics and the relations of one people to another and so on. And this is very important from the point of view of sustainable development, how one civilized country is developing compared to others. And this is in competence of my spheres of research interests. And myself, am a specialist in the politics of Canada in the Arctic. It's my first topic. And my second topic of research is Indigenous people of Canada. And the third point of interest is tourism in Canada. That was when I was living in Moscow. And now when I'm looking at northeast of Russia, being here in Yakutsk, it's very interesting to compare the Canadian and Russian experience with each other. It is like the closest country to us by its climate, by its nature, by its geographical location in relation to the Arctic. Canada is the second largest country in the Arctic. And in my research, when I was only interested in science, I had a goal to be able to mend Canadian-Russian relations through science. Canada, of course, is not going to be the best friend of Russia ever, because she is in Northern America, and well, her closest neighbor is the United States, and they have very close relations. But Canada is very close to us through the Arctic, and I always thought that maybe we can, like, well, I was very in love with Canada because it's very similar to Russia, and I always thought that through science we can build good relations. And from the point of view of scientific cooperation, these technical sciences, technology sciences, turn into practice. And now I am working in the Northern Forum as deputy director, and being here, it's possible to strategically change science into real projects, which our Northern Forum is talking about. The mission of the Northern Forum is about the sustainable development of the North and project activities. Next year, we're going to have 30th anniversary of the Northern Forum, which was created by the governor of Alaska, Walter Hickel, in 1991. And in 1993, Yakutia became member of the Northern Forum. And we need to say here that Mikhail Nikolaev with Walter Hickel is considered to be one of the two founding fathers of our international organization. And that is why it is very logical that the Secretariat of the Northern Forum has moved from Alaska to Yakutsk in 2013. And we have this second Northern Sustainable Development Forum. And now I call to intertwine science with practice, and Northern Forum can help you in this. And dear colleagues who talk about their own research interests, please come to the Northern Forum. We are ready to coordinate your projects, and the Northern Forum as an international organization is the observer in the Arctic Council. Thank you very much. And I want to add a little bit to Dariana. The Arctic Council is not an organization. It's a discussion panel. It's a forum where people come together and talk. The only international organization which Russia is part of is the Northern Forum. It's an organization. And I want to say that Russia is not fully using the resources of this forum as an international organization. In reality, Russia, represented by Yakutia, where the Northern Forum is, should have new action to include foreign countries into the forum and to expedite the interactions in the Arctic zone. What is important here is that when I see the interactions of the members of the Northern Forum, those members who are there, when I was looking at Dariana's moderating, these members have such good relations with us. They're so interested in what is going in Russia. They're so ready to share with us. This member from Iceland, from Chukotka, what were they saying during this forum? And you understand that they are ready to help us. And yes, there's like the new governor and so on. Maybe we should have these proposals to expand the forum, to have conversations with like more loyal regions who are ready to cooperate with Russia. And Russia and the government and the Ministry of Arctic of Russia will support this initiative. From the point of view of international politics, this will be very beneficial, because it's interaction not only on the level of states, but includes the local communities. And I think that this, international political activity and the situation which is in the Arctic now, we are going to the Arctic and actively, and because of this, we are now having enemies, now new enemies. And Mr. Juravel talked about this, about all these airplanes flying over us, all these war games and so on. And that's why I fully support the activities of the forum. Thank you very much for your warm words, Alexander Mikhailovich, and this is very important for us. And yes, we do have very good representation of the regional members in this second forum. And now, well, they say that we have one more speaker who would like to have the word, which is Vyacheslav Marachan. Vyacheslav Gennadievich Marachan. Yes, good evening, dear colleagues. From my point of view, today's topic, New Outlines of International Cooperation in the Arctic, is a very clearly understandable topic, and it is a very correct one. And it is good that this topic is at the concluding day of the forum, because this framework of international cooperation allows to see the Arctic in general, and maybe to conclude some remarks. And if we look at international cooperation in the Arctic from the point of view of global processes, then we can identify three types of issues that are on the international agenda. And these three types of issues are between the poles of interaction. Once again, 2 minutes, please. 2 minutes. Yes. Yes, there's only one point I want to say. So these three types of issues are located between the poles of cooperation and competition. So if you look at the competition, it's connected with the fact that the Arctic is the treasure trove of resources, for which there is some kind of fighting and the need to get the shelf areas of deposits and so on. But these resources are sold in the global market, and the trade brings investment, and investment brings technologies and transport. And as Eduard Galemulin said, we are moving to the paradigm of complex interdependency. Despite all this competition, there is always a cooperation. And the second type of issues is the framework of cooperation is the basic one, just basically for everything, for scientific cooperation, environment, protection of unique landscapes, and cleaning of the Arctic from all this pollution, and new formats for human habitation in these conditions, issues of climate change, which in the Arctic has a real form in the melting of permafrost and so on. And all of this has been talked about a lot in the forum, but I want to draw your attention that there's also a third type of issues, which I think is very important for the Northern Forum, I think. It's the issues, the answers to which potentially change the structure of international interaction and the character of processes of globalization. It is not a secret that at the moment there are changes which are due to a number of scenarios, are going to lead to the dissolution of the global world into several large regions. which are the poles of power, centers of power of the New World Order. But if we look at the geographical map, the Russian Arctic, Yakutia especially, are a link between such regions as Northeastern Asia, United States, and North America through the Bering Strait, and European Union. And I think that there is a huge potential of Yakutia as a hub of international interaction. And at the plenary session, which was the day before yesterday, we discussed transportation projects, including the construction of a bridge over the Bering Strait and the Northern Sea route, which can be connected to the Northwestern Passage and other transport corridors. But this is not only about transport, and this hub can Northern Forum can become this forum which can provide for intellectual and scientific support for this and for all these ideas that can change our world, and for the interaction and cooperation in the Arctic. And this forum, due to its pluralism, is a place for multifaceted cooperation and interaction, and I wish the forum success in the future. Thank you.
Вячеслав, вот я хотел...
Zhanna Vyacheslavorovna, did you want to say something? Yes, I wanted first to thank the participants for their good reports and the organizers of the forum for this good discussion panel, which united the participants from all the country and 12 time zones. Thank you. And also, second, I want to say some practical results of our discussion. In the process of listening to speakers, we understand that there is a kind of a disconnect in moving information from one region to another. And we would like for this forum to become a place for us to exchange our opinion on some reports. Well, we can't do this now, but for the future, me in Murmansk, I understand that a speaker who is far away from me, in several time zones away, can have a different opinion from me, different viewpoint from me, and this may not be true, and that's why we can just talk with each other and find some common ground. And second, I want to return to the proposal of Olga Podberezkina on environmental education. I think that this is a very interesting idea, and maybe it's early to propose this to the Arctic Council, but we should also discuss this, also because the environment is one of the key points on which international cooperation in the Arctic is built. And at present, due to new standards of education in Russia, the subject of environment has been removed from educational standards. And we are not talking about this. We are not understanding. We just basically don't understand what's going on. And our next generation of our students will only have a very, very light idea of the environment. And, well, how are we going to develop Arctic with this? Like in Murmansk, we are trying to preserve this subject for the students. Well, we are talking here about our leading universities who are, moving to distant education, and they're reducing the number of hours taught, and the environment, ecology as a subject is leaving educational programs. This is like a disaster. And how can we talk about like preservation of the Arctic? We are training future economists, future directors, future managers who do not understand what is an environment and why it should be protected. Yes, we understand the soul of your speech. Well, you are here for the first time on this kind of forum. You need to work with para because the issues of environmental educations is what we are working on. There's a whole program which is introduced into schools. So let's work together on this. Yes, we need to talk about education separately. Yes, okay, we talked about this before. Yes, we had participants from universities and so on. Yes, and when they talk about the educational programs which are absent, I see that they are not there. Thank you. Yes, you are correct. Thank you. Once again, thank you to all the participants and the organizers. And now I give the floor to Vladimir Spiridonov, Deputy Minister for International Relations and People's Affairs of Yakutia.
Готовились к этому форуму, волновались, потому что, понятное дело, с пандемией у нас намеченные планы все поменялись, конечно. И очень отрадно, что в этом году
I'm really glad that this year finishing our Northern Forum, we have lots of participants from different regions of Russian Federation and more than 10 foreign countries. And comparing with last year forum, we had only 300 participants, and I think that this year forum has attracted a huge amount of participants, and we really hope that next year, in the framework of Arctic Council leading position, we are planning to hold the forum more on a higher level. So I think that in the future we will succeed, and then also I'd like to assure you that from our side, on behalf of Republic of Sakha-Yakutia, there were lots of reports and speeches by our speakers. What about international cooperation? Darian has said a few words, and I'd like to add that we have lots of friends in different countries, in Finland, Norway, Iceland, in Spain, in Sweden. And before the Northern Forum, we connected with them, and we have a really good relationships with them. Also, would like to talk on educational system. We have International Arctic School. Also, we have some programs like Children of the Arctic, and our school children annually visiting Arctic countries, and they take part in Arctic clubs of Norway. And they are launching lots of really bright projects. Personally, I took part in several projects. And first of all, of course, I wish you a strong health. Thank you very much, Alexander. It was a really fruitful panel discussion. Dear colleagues, so I would like to say a conclusion word. Big thanks to you, and we managed to meet with you, and maybe we are the only region which which is holding such a big forum. I would like to express my gratitude to our partners, to our friends who organized all the sessions and panel discussions during these days. There were not only Russian regions, but also foreign countries. Also, what about Northern Forum regions? All of them took part in our forum, maybe except one or two countries. In Northern Forum, we have 14 countries, and I would like to thank all the technical crew. Previously, I said that our internet connection is not so good, but I am convinced that it's not so. The connection was good. Of course, we couldn't predict how would our participants' connection would be, but all the discussions will be streamed on YouTube. You can watch them later. We had a discussion on transportation in the Arctic, also about human in the Arctic and territory management in the Arctic. Thank you very much for being with us these days. It is it's fascinating feeling then when you're organizer and when you feel that you are seen by so many people and participants. And surely we are creating the new outlines of international cooperation. And I would like to give the floor to the moderator of our panel discussion, Alexander Vorotnikov. Dear colleagues, now we are finishing our forum. Last year, when I was here, I was asked to organize the forum, and so I can say that the forum is also my child. So when Dariana said that there will be the next forum, of course I agreed to work on it, and it's a very important moment when such big high-level event is providing and holding in such distant region like Republic of Sakha-Yakutia. And lots of people's souls are on fire when we talk about the Arctic. And of course, we should know the role of the head of the Republic. I see Nikolaev, and we see that the government of the Republic supports the organizing of the forum. And I really would like to embed the forum. And I think that international aspects should be taken into account by the Republic. So the international cooperation should be developed. You should educate masters So what about Murmansk experience? They are living in a port zone. So you need to prepare the specialists who can work in the Arctic zone, and all the points which were outlined today, they should be taken into account and discussed in the future. And especially, I wonder why there is no volunteering movement. We should pay lots of attention in volunteering. In Murmansk we have very strong direction in eco-volunteering. And what about Yakutia? There is no even concept of eco-volunteering. The Northern Forum also should pay attention on it. And I'd like to finish our panel discussion, and I think that the forum was held really successfully, and I'd like to express my gratitude to the government of the Republic of Sakha-Yakutia, the Northern Forum, and of course, special thanks to the technical crew who provide everything. We understand that it's really complicated to manage with that. Thank you very much for your work.